Hello. I am hopefully using the correct microphone here. I had some issues before with my Samsung G, whatever the hell this is called. It would crash Zoom. So I'm trying it again. I updated my computer. This is super freaky because I am here on my computer on Zoom as per usual, but I also have my phone next to me live on Instagram eventually, and then have my iPad that's live on TikTok because I really want to try and up the Instagram numbers. So I see like three of myself right now, and it's really bothering me. But welcome, everybody. Today we are discussing Dark Archives by Megan Rosenblum. This is a library's investigation into the science and history of books bound in human skin. This is probably the epitome of this book club. It's what makes the most sense to read. I feel like I have had people ask me, why haven't we read this for the book club yet? So here we are, finally reading it. So excited to discuss, and I think it's going to be a really good discussion because there's a lot of debate in this book. This this was fantastic, though. I really, really enjoyed this. I have a lot of announcements to make, which I'm going to wait until we are in the thick of it. You can see like bottles next to me. Cool, cool, cool. Should clean up a bit in here. Anyway, I have a lot to discuss and a lot to go over. So I'm going to save it all until everybody pops in. I had like 73 people tell me that they were going to come tonight. We will see. We'll see. So I think that's it. I should be good. This is really freaky seeing me in so many different areas. Okay, let's get into it. I'm making sure I haven't forgotten anything. I'm like spaced out right now. This is being recorded for YouTube. As always, if you miss the discussion, if you have to pop out early, something happens, the discussion will be on YouTube. Hopefully tonight. Tomorrow at best. Because sometimes the rendering, whatever, I don't have to explain it. It'll be on YouTube. Second thing, cats may be screaming at me. They're fine. They're not allowed in here. Only a couple of them are. I don't want them in here while I'm talking about books. So if the cats are screaming, I promise they're okay. They just went in. Like I said, live on Instagram and TikTok. Hello! Oh my gosh, people are commenting on the Instagram. Hi! Oh my god, hello. What's going on? It's my first Instagram live. What's going on? Okay. Next, you don't have to speak. All right. You can just hang here for the vibes. You don't have to say anything. You can just keep your camera off. I'm not going to judge you. Keep admitting people going back and forth. There will be spoilers, of course. I know it's nonfiction. Some of it's history. Some of this doesn't count as a spoiler, but there will be obviously a full discussion of this book. So if you have not read it, how many cats do I have? 6. um, if you haven't read it, you should. I'll just say that, and then we'll get into the discussion. Come and go as you please. If you would need to leave and come back, I will let you back in. No worries. It's not going to hurt my feelings. If also you just need to leave early or don't even want to be here anymore. If you're like, this sucks, leave. I don't care. Raise your hand on Zoom. Use the feature. It's the little reactions button. If you just click it, it will raise your hand and put you in a queue. So how we do this for those of you that are new here is since we're over Zoom and we can't unfortunately meet in person, it just puts you guys in a queue and I go down the line. Takes a good amount of time for us to get through everybody. So we will probably be chatting for about an hour. Of course, stay on topic. I want to hear what you have to say, speak your truth, but let's keep it going. There's a good amount of people here. There will be differing opinions. Okay, we've never had an issue in this book club. Never, never, never. But I suspect tonight, especially, there will be differing opinions. So let's be kind. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's gonna know, whatever. People will have differing opinions. Let's be nice. Again, palate cleanser after. So at like 8 o'clock, something around that time, we will stop recording, go off live. Everybody can turn your microphones on, and we will have just a general discussion and not talk about human skin books for an hour. I want to hear what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're seeing, what you're doing, everything else. Oops, some people are waiting on me to admit them. Okay, now let me share my screen if I have the right screen up, because I wanted to show you some things. Yep, that one. first and foremost, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, around that area. I will be at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo on the 24th. I was going to go both days, 24th and the 25th. However, the 25th is actually our discussion for our February book. So I would prefer to be home and not driving around in Charlotte that day. Of course, something is going to happen and I'm going to be stuck in traffic, something along those lines. This place is mint for the Morbidly Curious Book Club. I mean, I don't know why we haven't gone before. I would love, do I click shop? How do I just like show you pictures of this place? It's super cool. How cool would it be to have a table at this place? I mean, that's like the dream. That's the next goal, right? Let's see. What else? Oh, I put on here that also people in North Carolina, if you are a big fan of Stephen Graham Jones like I am, he's going to be at the Wake Forest University, February 20th. The details are a little murky. It says it's like open to the public and free. I don't know if he's going to be just chatting. I don't know if he's going to be just signing. If that interests you, let me know and I can share you the details. Because Bookmarks North Carolina in Winston-Salem sent it to me. I love Stephen Graham Jones. I would love to get some books signed. That's all I know. I don't know much more about it. So I will still share the link with you if you are interested in that. Something coming up very soon is there's only 85. I've told you there's only 85 things I have to tell you guys before we get started. I'm so sorry. In 1 second. Screen share. I don't know if you guys know who Midnight Narrative is. And she just joined the Instagram. What's up, girl? Midnight Narrative is this incredible artist. She creates clay jewelry, specifically fantasy. As you could see her in her earrings in this picture up here, she did a great Fourth Wing collection. She sells in a lot of local places. What happened? Did somebody start talking? Did y'all hear that? Am I tripping? Okay. Midnight Narrative is great. And we are working on a collab. So you guys are going to get some Morbidly Curious earrings coming to you very, very soon. I do have a Google form that I sent to the Discord people already to get an idea of kind of what they wanted, what their budget was, etc., etc. So if you would like that, I will put that in the chat. But I'm super excited about it. It's going to be really cool. I met with Sarah recently, and our ideas are going to be incredible. Incredible, incredible. Okay, one more person. Brett Inman. Okay, where's my housekeeping? Okay, yes, obviously. We have to talk about this. I keep losing the damn page. Where are you? Okay. As some of you guys know, we do have a Morbidly Curious Book Club podcast now. This is so exciting. Ideally, my goal is to interview the authors each month. And so far, I have all the way up until April booked with the authors. And it is always a treat to be able to get that message and just say that they're interested. That makes me so happy. So I chatted with Megan Rosenblum on the 16th, I believe. I have edited the episode. I have sent it to her. We talked for over 2 hours. Maybe my cat screamed and that's what I heard. It sounded like a person. Okay. I chatted with Megan for over 2 hours. I did cut down the episode to about an hour and a half. She had so many fun, cool things to say. And I really wanted to release it before our discussion tonight because I think it would have helped in our discussion just a little bit. But unfortunately, still waiting on approval. We will get that and I will get it to you guys before February. February 10th is when I'm talking to Laura Norton. And I don't have the book with me because I was reading it today and it's in my bag. February 10th, I'm talking to Laura Norton. I understand that we're not all going to have the book done by then. So, but if you have it finished, please send me questions that you have for Laura. And then you have up until the 10th. And of course, I'm assuming anything else, like if you guys finish it on the 20th and have a question, I can probably reach out to her. But we'll see. We'll see. So, very exciting. Right now, I just have the introduction and our lineup posted. And it's going to be, of course, as you could see, on pretty much all podcast platforms. There's a couple that I haven't heard of that I didn't include. If you don't see your podcast platform, let me know and I will try and include it. But it's going to be really fun. I'm really, really excited about this. So yeah, Laura Norton next month. Jonathan Kennedy, who lives in the UK, is chatting with me March 15th. I took the day off of work. I'm so excited about it. Like, I was messaging people like publicists and agents, and they like wanted to talk to me. Like, who am I? This is so exciting. Okay. So be sure to follow the podcast wherever you listen to in the platform, etc., etc. Anything else? Oh, I did open up a Patreon. Okay. We do have a Patreon for the book club. Everything is free on the Patreon. You can donate if you would like. That's how I'm treating it, as like a donation every month. If you just want to toss $5 my way, that would be awesome, but no pressure if you can't. It would help cover some of the expenses with the book club. I did just create a domain. I have a website. I've got the Zoom. I've got a couple other things. If you just feel so inclined, you may. I think that's it. I'm probably just gonna shut up now. There might be more, but oh, got it. Finished it 20 minutes ago. Yes, you did. I want to see Hank Brown. I don't think that's who's yelling at me. I think it's Jax. I'm probably gonna have to let him in at one point. And you guys get to see my fun zebra pants that I'm currently wearing. Dark Archives. Let's talk about it. I heard it too. It was a person. Okay. No worries. Dark Archives. What's also great about the podcast, y'all, is this actually makes me finish the books. Can we talk about that for a second? Loved it. I loved it. I'll go ahead and go first and just say I absolutely love this. Go ahead and start raising your hand in the queue if you have some things to say, whether you loved it or hate it. Let's get the discussion going. I really enjoyed this. I really liked Megan's writing. I really like how she tied in her life to it, especially the end there when she was talking about her mom. I thought that was just phenomenal. And of course, I have questions too on whether or not you guys would be cool with one day your skin being a book binding. We have to talk about that. I did do a poll on Instagram, and I think it was like 25, it was like 100 people voted. 25% said yes. There was like 39 to 40% that said no. Another small 20 something percent said it would depend on the book, which is a good point. I didn't even think of that. Good point. And then 2% said I'm on the wrong Instagram. So it just, it depends. I don't know if I would, but I think it was Lexi in the Discord too that was saying, well, because of the tattoos, I feel like it would be super cool. And I loved that chapter as well, because I didn't, and also Megan in the podcast talked about how people are now pressing ashes and their remains into vinyl records. I didn't know that was a thing. I have seen tattoos done. I used to work at a shop, so I have seen people bring in ashes for tattoos, and that is definitely a thing. Could you imagine? Like, I spent a lot of money on this. I feel like I should post-mortem still get something out of it. You know what I mean? Anyway, give me all of your thoughts. Let me know what you thought. Starting with Haley. I'm so glad you can come. I'm so glad you had a Saturday or Sunday off. What day is it?
Sunday. Yeah. So starting off, just so grateful to actually be at book club today. I've been really sad because I have been reading all the books still and somewhat active in the Discord, but just the new job, I have to work Sundays and I don't get off soon enough for book club. So grateful to be here today. I actually really enjoyed this one. I did it as an audiobook just because the actual book was not available for me. So I got through it very quickly. Like, I would put it on while I was cooking dinner. And so I got through it very quick. I really enjoyed the history part. Yeah, a lot of the ethical stuff, as someone who works in like the social work field where I literally have to take like a law and ethics exams. I was sitting there like, yeah, this is really, really problematic. And the fact that it was doctors doing so is just, I'm not surprised at all.
Right.
It's just makes me a little bit like, as someone who is an organ donor, I think someone brought up the point of like, well, skin is the largest organ. So yeah. So I was kind of one of the people who was like, A, it depends on the book.
Mm-hmm.
B, if I could specify, like, make sure it's the parts of my skin that have tattoos on it for binding.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm gonna be dead anyways. So
Right. I mean,
like
it's just
I
gonna be one
guess.
dude, so
And then depends who gets me as a book. Like whose
Mhm.
collection am I going to be in? Because if I'm just going to some random stranger, maybe not. But if
Right.
my book is going to be kept in the family and collected by my loved ones, not necessarily sure how much they would want a book bound in my skin, but you know, that would be a stipulation as well.
Right.
Um, but just overall, it was very interesting read, and I loved Megan's writing style. It was very easy to like keep up with, and
Oh yeah.
like
Agree.
kept me captivated.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to continuously reference the podcast episode that you guys will hear very soon, I promise. But there was a point where I had mentioned to Megan, I was thinking about that before the episode where I'm like, I have a lot of books. Obviously, these are not going to follow me to the grave. Like who's going to get these? And she made the point that there were probably many a human skin book that somebody had owned and a family member had possession of and probably just threw it away because they had no use of it or any idea as to what exactly it was. So there's a lot that are probably just in the trash. In the trash. Which some would argue would be the best option. We shall see. I'm so excited. Ray, welcome back. How you doing? How you doing?
Can we actually hear me this
Yes,
time?
we can.
Awesome. I absolutely loved it. From start to finish. I listened to the audiobook and the narrator was such a positive change from In Different Stars Above with a very, very droning man. This very engaging. I just really liked everything about it. I like how she tied it into more personal things. I like how she gave specific like historical cases for it and just all of like her journey in it. It was really, really cool. And I grew up in the fine art and antique world. And I can confirm when people die and they have massive libraries, we will let people come in and pick what they want, like book dealers, but 85-90% of it's just
Oh,
Salvation Army or
no.
trash. So God only knows how many of those things like existed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't be less surprised that it's doctors just taking people's skin, especially women and people of color. Couldn't be less surprised. Yeah, it was really, really engaging. And my singular beef is I wish it was longer.
Mm-hmm.
Understand there's only so much you can write about, especially if that pushback for like testing certain ones just still is happening. But yeah, I can't wait to hear the podcast episode. And it was my favorite book that I've read for book club so far.
Yay! Oh, hell yeah. I love to hear that. So check your local Salvation Armies, guys. You never know what you're gonna find. It does have me looking at leather-bound books different. Does anybody like after reading this book, anytime you see a leather-bound, you're like, oh God. Yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to hear the episode. Chloe, welcome back. What's up?
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome on.
So for this book, I have a really complicated relationship with it because I loved it. When I first sat down and read it, I think I read the first like maybe 150 pages and couldn't put it down. And then I took like a 3-week break and then picked it back up. And so then the latter half, I was kind of like struggling to get through for some reason. I still rated it an 8 out of 10 because I think it was a me problem.
Mm.
But my favorite part was like all of the historical cases, and it it was really interesting because like she would give you this case or this insight on this book, and so I was like highlighting and taking notes of like, is this a human skin book? And then later it's like, no, it was plant. And I was like, oh, okay, well, never mind then, I guess.
Right.
Um, but I really enjoyed it. I definitely think that the last like fourth of the book that I struggled through was like a me issue. Because life is just stressful. But the
Me too.
first bits of it, like especially the first 2/3 of it, I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm
And I'm
glad.
really excited for the podcast too.
It's gonna be good. It is gonna be good. Also to Ray's point, I have a friend, actually I have a couple friends that if I tell them to read a book, their first question is, does a man narrate the audiobook? And if my answer is yes, they literally will not read it. They refuse. They're like, oh, I don't, especially I have one friend, British. She's like, if it's British, I'm not listening. And I'm like, wow, okay. Hilarious. Jessica. I was about to say my Stardust Life first, and I'm like, I should probably say should probably say the name first.
That's just my name on Discord, so I wanted to like
Smart. It does
kind of
help.
keep it, yeah, like you, Patches.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. This is
Welcome.
my second meeting, but my first one where I'm actively participating. And I only had access to the audiobook as well. And I have to say I love Megan's writing. I actually want to purchase the book because I want to reread it already. I loved it and I love the narrator. And I have a lot of notes that I will run through really quickly. First, I just want to say that I'm not at all surprised at the demographic of people who were chosen. And I was not surprised at all that it was doctors that were doing this, because like I can see where your curiosity of humans, and also a sort of disconnect that can happen when you start like dissecting humans, and when you start experimenting. I can see that there some doctors may have a clear disconnect, and they're like, well, this is not human anymore, this is a corpse, so I can separate myself. And not that that makes it any better, but I think that that is a part of the process that happens. The first shocking part of the book for me was regarding Paul Needham, and we talked about it a little bit in the Discord, about his discussion of postmortem rape, which I just like immediately as he said it, I paused it and I just sat with that for a while, because I was like, what? And I thought it was really I thought it was an interesting thought, but the longer I sat with it, the less I agreed with him. And I actually had an interesting conversation with my husband about it, because he felt that that Paul was actually projecting his own view of women onto the doctor who did these things.
Right.
Which I thought was an interesting, he's in psychology, so I think that's how he came to that conclusion. And I thought that was interesting, because I agree with Megan, we can't just like suggest that this is what he was thinking,
Right.
because it's never been written anywhere. Although there are studies that show that men even today look at women as objects. So back in the day, it would be even worse. So who's to say? But I found that the most interesting part of the book. And I really thought, so one of the people that Megan talked about was Elma Brenner, and I'm not sure which chapter this was in, but avoiding a voyeuristic display. I thought that was really well done, and I thought that was a good thought process, because I don't know where I land on the, do we get rid of them? Do we keep them? I don't know where I land. I really see both sides
Yeah.
of that. I'm kind of straddling the fence there, because I don't know what's the best road.
Yeah.
So, because it's done and what's done is done. But at the same time, it's like, what do we do? Yeah. So, but that's everything that I wanted to say right now. So
Well, thanks for
thank
coming.
you.
I did share a email that I got with, and Megan actually had a really good point about that in the episode as well, and I'll save that for you guys to listen, but she did send me an email afterwards, and she said she wanted to expand on his comments even more. And I did tell her too, I said, it seems like right now the Discord is going kind of back and forth on intent. And Megan said, totally. And that's what even she says in the book. Our main area of disagreement was around intent. Did he intend to degrade women with his creation, or the dehumanizing act byproduct? Or was, and Megan also said his impact too. That's something we also have to take into account. She said, there's a point I wish I made in the post-mortem, I'm going to say grape, just because I'm live, conversation, and you guys don't have to, just me. It's okay. They probably can't hear you as well. But if you want to share my 2 cents with the Discord, feel free. We're in the live. But if you'd like to join the Discord, let me know. I'll put the link in there. What he did is not post-mortem grape. You can call it assault, but for something to be grape, it has to be a different nature. And that is zero proof that that was the case. So if someone walked up and slashed someone's arm with a knife, yes, that's assault, but you can absolutely not call that grape. Even if you suspect the perpetrator did the slashing for enjoyment and or power, because it's about the specific ways the victim was violated. Using imprecise language in this way feels disrespectful of actual victims to me, is what she had said. And that does seem to get, again, in the murky waters a bit, because by definition, we have this, but intent and impact seems to be the biggest conversation right now. And I like that we are kind of seeing all different sides of this. This is great. And thank you so much for coming. Now, Sarah, this one does not have the body count like last time, but I'm so glad you came back.
It's fun to be here with all the marvelous sickos. I love it.
Welcome. You'll fit right in.
Am I the only one who has ever seen an alleged human skin book at an oddities shop? Just
Might be. Has anyone
'cause
else?
I've seen
Oh,
one and
wait. We have another one, Misty.
you. But knowing what I do now from this book, I'm thinking, I remember it being kind of large. And now I'm like, probably not. I don't know a lot about leather, but it did come back to me and I went, oh, gross.
Right.
The whole conversation you just had, it also occurred to me while I was reading the book, there's this implicit assumption, I think it's probably a safe assumption, that this was non-consensual.
Oh, yeah.
Do we know that? I don't know. I mean, is it likely that a poor, diseased, dying woman was consulted? Probably not, but there is no documentation. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it's a long shot.
Right.
But I do still think that that is an assumption, as there's no proof one way or the other. That said, I mean, I've done some research about, for instance, the Tewksbury Almshouse, the Massachusetts State Almshouse in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. There was a big hullabaloo in the 1880s about treatment of those people, and some human skin objects were produced and brought out publicly. And so, yeah, when people are given an opportunity to do things they shouldn't with folks they think are lesser,
Yeah,
that clearly does happen. So yeah, that didn't quite sit right with me. But on the other hand, I mean, I've written books, they're here next to me, and I found myself listening to this book and looking up at the books that have my name on the spine and thinking the thought that I didn't really anticipate ever thinking in my life. Like,
right.
would that be cool or would that be awful?
Right.
I don't know. So yeah, that's where I am with all of this.
Yeah, it's hard to, I feel like it's hard to be on either side as well. Like there's no right answers with this. And
Yeah.
we were talking about, consent and the law also in the podcast, right? And it made me think of the German serial, or not the German serial killer, but the German guy and his partner,
Yes.
who consensually agreed to cannibalism. And it's like, well, they consented, but
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 big but here, not legal. So, that's could she
and
have given consent, in the right mind? I feel like she maybe would have said, by the way, if you are alarmed in however X many years of this finding, I said okay.
yeah.
Probably if she was that sick, I mean, she was so sick, she
Yeah.
probably didn't even wasn't in the right state of mind to even answer that kind of question.
Yeah.
Ugh, I don't know.
And
I
another
don't know.
funny thing to me that like as I was contemplating the thought of my skin wrapped around my own books, it never occurred to me until somebody said it a few minutes ago, but who would get them after I'm dead? Like,
Yeah.
who would
Which
want
relative
them?
would not find it as important and put you
Like what? I don't have any kids. Like what is my cousin's kid's gonna want this? I don't know.
Yeah.
And
don't
even
know.
if that was an option, like who would do it? Who would bind a book for you with your own carcass?
Right.
It's a long shot.
Listen, I'm sure they're out there though.
Probably
We can't rule it out yet. Give us a chance. Yeah, I don't know. That is a good question. It would depend on the book. What book would you want to be a cover? Anyway, much to think about. Christina, hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
I'm just over here thinking about the used bookstores I was in today, going, they have those nice vintage sections.
What are the ones behind the
Glad I
glass?
didn't look at anything in them.
Right.
Oh, yeah, with the whole consent issue, the weirdest slash most interesting story from the whole book for me was that like serial criminal who had that guy in the prison help him write his memoirs and then was like, okay, cool. Now, after you execute me, bind these in my skin and you can have one. And then also that guy that I really screwed over the most in my whole life, he gets the other copy. And I'm like, how do you come up with that list of who gets it?
You have so much time to think about these things.
I'm like,
Why?
you want two of them made, and they'll look cool. Guy who helped you write the book. I get that one. But guy who's the reason I'm in prison and who I've really fucked over in life, now I want you to have my life story bound in me
The guy who wrote it, does he want
for
it?
the rest of your life.
Does he get a chance to have a say in this? Like,
Yeah. It's like, I don't think he wants that. Like, I wouldn't want that.
I wouldn't want that.
Like, I wouldn't want one in somebody I liked skin. I definitely wouldn't want that guy.
Could be a book about my cats, and I still wouldn't really want it.
Uh-uh. I mean, I have that. I haven't even decided whether or not I want Ashes back when it comes time, because I'm just like, as I'm sitting in a room with my grandparents' ashes because I'm at my mom's house this week, and I'm just like,
I was wondering.
it's
Yeah.
weird.
Been listening in on the conversation. Yeah.
But
Yeah, that part was
like,
weird.
yeah, it's like it was a fascinating book, and I'm excited for whenever this podcast drops, because I just listened to her podcast on ologies.
Yeah.
So it's like that science perspective, and so it was also really cool listening to that after I'd already read the book, because I was like, hey, I remember that part.
Yeah.
And then you get a little bit more. And so coming at it from the non-science perspective, I'm excited to hear her talk about the book. And that episode came out right as her book was released, I think the day before. So I'm guessing that they didn't have I don't think Allie Ward was out there reading the book and then um talking about it. So it was just like, let's talk about the things that are going to be talked about in your book. And now this is going to be like, now that we've read the book, let's talk about the things we've read about.
Yeah.
But she was really well spoken on that podcast. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from her. And just in general, if she were to write more books, I would read more books.
Yeah, also she did give some input on that at the end of the podcast episode, and I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised.
Oh, yay. The sequel, the book about books bound in human brains.
Yeah. Yeah, I was fangirling a little bit when I discovered that she had been on the Ologies podcast and that she was friends with Allie Ward. I'm like, again, who am I?
Yeah,
Like, ugh. It was super cool.
yeah.
And I also listened to make sure I didn't ask like the exact same questions. I'm proud of
Well, yeah,
myself.
and
I
at the
did
very
ask
end of the
one.
book, when
Good.
she was like, she was talking about her friend who's a paleontologist who also works at like the med school with like the gross anatomy lab. And she's like, yeah, he was just um, interviewed by my friend Allie Ward on her podcast. I'm like,
Girl. I love that.
I was like, okay, this is that thing that people feel with celebrities, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I asked her too. One of the neatest parts about this book for me was the Anatomy Act discussion, because that's like one of my favorite parts of history, learning about the Anatomy Act. And then several chapters later, her getting to like tour the USC anatomy classes. I'm like, how interesting was that jump to like be learning about how people fought for cadavers, but now you're in like an educational space and they're kind of readily available. She was like, it was super cool. So I love learning about the Anatomy Act. That was bonkers. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. How was our reference section? Was it good?
It was good,
It was
but
good.
I will say that a lot of those references were like, here's this really obscure thing that I read in German. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm going to get a lot out of this reference section that I can also read, but
Right.
very glad for her and all of the research she did.
And then we do have the list at the back of the book. I don't think this was included in the audiobook, but in the back of the book, there is a list of the confirmed anthropodermic book
Confirmed,
projects,
non-anonymized.
confirmed human, skin books as of March 2020. Also, out of curiosity, morbid curiosity, as one would say, does anybody have a hardcover that is first edition? Because if you do, it is like an anomaly. Mine is first edition, second printing. So check your hardcovers, because this was created during COVID times, first editions are apparently hard to find. You do? Love that. Hell yeah. Well, that's like an anomaly. If you are in the LA area, I do think she is signing very soon. I can't remember where, but if you are in the City of Angels, I believe she is going to be there soon. I can pull up information while Brittany tells us what she thought. Let me look this up.
All right. First of all, does my mic work? It didn't let me test it when I joined.
It
Okay,
does
cool.
work. I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Awesome. Hey guys, long time lurker, first time like actually joining the Zoom meeting. So this is exciting. I have read several of the books that the club has done. So I was actually available tonight. So I'm just jumping in. I just jotted down like a big list of notes to kind of just jump in. But for starters, I work as a historian in archaeology. And so this was like super fascinating for me
Oh,
on
yeah.
every single level. And at first, when I read the description of this, I had never heard of this book before. And when you hear like, oh, a book about human skin bound books, it could go a lot of ways. And I was really glad that, I don't know, you guys might disagree, but I feel like she did a good job weaving the whole story together between the science, the case studies, all of her personal experiences, but without glorifying it, but also without making me absolutely disgusted by it.
Right.
It's somehow she managed to really weave it together in a nice way. Some of the stuff I thought was most fascinating was really just like the controversy over, do we destroy these? Do we not? Even with some of the commentary from, I think it was the guy that worked at Princeton. She didn't even really like throw him under the bus or anything. Like I felt like she did like her due diligence to bring his opinions in without saying like, he's wrong or like, I vehemently disagree. The other thing just to throw out there is, if you guys, I don't know if this has been part of the book club readings in the past, but I just finished The Butchering Art by Lindsay Gutierrez, and this tied in like so perfectly.
Perfect.
Because it even talked about some of the same people from, Victorian London and stuff. But this book for me was like 10 out of 10, loved it. Even I stayed up later than I normally do, just like telling my husband who didn't read it, just all about it, because I nerded out with like all the history and everything.
Poor Chris,
And
I
it
do that
even,
all the time.
yeah, and it got us also talking, especially near the end of the book. It brought up a lot of conversations for us about, like what do we want to do when we die? Like, all because she talked about like the tattoos and stuff, and all the different things that people do and the legality of all those things that you can do with your remains now. But yeah, I just wanted to throw all that out there. And something I learned about myself during all of this, this is really weird, but I'm sure you guys will understand.
Bring it.
I have this dancing skeleton tattoo based on the Dance
Oh
of Death. And then I was like, there's 2 confirmed copies that are bound in, like, I didn't know there was 2. So that was very eye-opening for me.
I love that. Was initially before we had the logo. That was the logo.
Oh,
For the
nice.
book club. Yeah. I'm obsessed with that. That is such a cool tattoo. This is
Yeah.
definitely a book that we should read. We did read The Facemaker at the end of
Okay.
2022, I think it was. That was really interesting. And I think they're friends as well, her and Lindsay Fitzharris.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel good too. If we do wind up picking this, I feel like I have an in to get to her. So I'm super,
Yeah.
I've had this for forever and I need to read it. Because I would absolutely probably eat this up. Especially like how they used to do the anatomy stuff back in the day, just like in like an arena. Love. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good conversation to have with your significant others. It might be awkward, but it is a good conversation to have. I was reading parts of this, like every book, I was reading parts of it to Chris, and he's just like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And especially when she went to the lab and looked, the students had the cadavers. I live like not too far from the body farm, and I've always been like, that's what I want to do when I die. And so it actually got me to get online and look it up, and it's 30 pages of paperwork you have to fill out. And I was
Which
like,
body
oh, I
farm?
guess the one at UT.
Oh, yeah. Is that one under the stadium?
I don't think it's under. Part of it might be. I don't
Texas
think
is
it
under
is,
the
though.
stadium, isn't it?
Oh no, Tennessee. Sorry.
No. I'm sorry. I was saying yeah. Because you said Tennessee, so I'm thinking maybe it's the Texas one. There's one that's like
Oh,
under the
gotcha.
stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that too because I went to Western Carolina and they also have their forensics program has a body farm, and I think it'd be super cool to donate my body to that science as well and just have them
Mhm.
study me and whatnot. I think that'd be cool. I also just want to be buried in the Appalachian Mountains because I feel like that's where I belong. Yeah, that'd be super cool. I have to look that up. That's so weird though, to put it under the stadium. But yeah, UT, there's only like a handful. There's one in Texas, there's one in here in North Carolina, and fascinating. Fascinating. Megan. Hi, dear. What's up, girl?
Hello. I
Hi.
can just say this month has been so confusing with the author's name being Megan, because I would see like missed messages in Discord and be like, oh no, and I'm like, oh, not me, just kidding.
Not me.
But I don't know. I have a few thoughts. This is the first time I've written in a book of mine, and I went nuts with it. And I realized my annotations are ridiculous, and I don't think I should ever resell this book because some of it I'm just like, the fuck? That was my reactions. But I think I might be one of the few people who like the part, I just have it on page 176 where she said it's easier to believe that objects of human skin are made by monsters like Nazis and serial killers, not the well-respected doctors like the likes of whom parents want their children to become someday. And I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that I thought that all human skin books were made by Nazis, but I was very shocked to find that on the next page she said, to date we have never found a human skin book made by the Nazis, which was weird to me.
Right.
I feel like there's got to be one, because
There has to be.
their whole thing was testing and medical like interests and stuff, and so it's like I feel like there has to be something. But I just thought it was odd because yeah, the fact that it was like doctors and stuff, that was surprising to me. I didn't expect that, but I haven't done much looking into human skin books, so I don't know. But the other thing that kind of stuck out, we were talking about consent, I'm guessing we're talking about Mary Lynch, right?
Yes.
Like with her consent. The one thing that I had noticed was, so like prior to her death, her family had done all that they could to try and help make her comfortable. Bringing her the food, unfortunately, that ended up killing her. But what was weird to me was that after he took her skin, it said her body was dumped in a pauper's grave. But like she had family, her family was there taking care of her, making sure she was comfortable. And so I'm wondering what the family was told as far as like when she died, like why they didn't get her body to bury her, because it's not like she was alone. I thought that was weird.
Look at Popper's grave.
I'm guessing just like an unmarked, like just like I should probably look up what a pauper's grave is, but to me it sounds like just kind of there wasn't really like an actual burial.
Right.
But
It does look kind of makeshift, but it's also, I don't know, I could show you the pictures that I'm looking at right now because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because I'm seeing a picture of literally every kind of grave, so I don't
oh, so kind of just like a mass grave type thing.
Is that what that is? It looks like just a bunch of 2x4s on top of each other. So that is a box. Okay.
It looks like those
Yeah.
are caskets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess just a mass grave, but
Was it like a rule that because she was ill? Like, was there a fear that they needed to keep her? Just keep her by herself. I'm so
I
confused.
don't
Okay,
see, and it
sorry.
doesn't even say, like it doesn't say at all why. I don't know. It just bothered me because like
Right.
the way that she was treated during life was like her skin was taken care of a lot more than she ever was during her life. And then of course he made his money and his living off of creating this speculum for women, which I'm like, cool, fuck you.
Yeah.
But
Thanks.
then like all of his wealth and all of his success in life was based on like creating things for women, and it just bothered me because yeah, that whole thing with her, and he kept her skin like safekeeping because it was decades later that he used her skin, so he like took care of it so well before. Okay, Kelsey, she pointed that out too. Multi-purpose speculum, not just a speculum, it's the multi-purpose speculum. But yeah, it just bugged me that that's where his specialty was, but he also just, I don't think he was one of the doctors that did it because he actually cared. I think for him it was a twisted way of power, and I don't know.
Ray did point out. Sorry to cut you
wasn't
off.
a fan.
Ray did point out they probably couldn't afford it. That's a good point. Also, I had no idea that selling Nazi anything is illegal. I didn't know that.
I did not either.
It's a mass grave for the poor, and yeah, multi-purpose speculum. Thanks.
I guess that does make more sense then. It was just the way that it was worded because it said her body was dumped in a pauper's grave. It's kind of made it sound like they were trying to just get rid of her because they took her skin, and then they're like, oh, but
Yeah.
I guess that does make more sense. But
Also,
even then, like,
baloney now.
I feel like because she had family, there should have been some sort of consent from her family or from her. Because for me, if I give my consent and I know who it's going to, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I think if there's not consent, or if we know whose skin it is, because obviously it could be, 100 whatever years old, if we know who it belongs to and we have a way of getting permission from a relative, an ancestor of theirs, then I think okay. But I think if we know that the situation under which the skin was obtained was iffy, I think that's something where it shouldn't. I don't even know if I would want to keep it in a museum because it's ownership of someone that they didn't give their consent to. So even though I know it's skin, it's, and the reason it was taken is because it's coming from a person. So they're not alive, but it's still like ownership in my brain. I don't know.
Also, I feel like consensually, though, the best hands that it could be in would probably be a museum or a librarian or somebody who is at least
That's true.
respectful of the item. But that is
Not like a doctor's collection.
right, not on some
Yeah.
old dude's shelf. But if we were to one day this be an option along with pressing yourself into vinyl records or Body Farm or whatever, be like, you can be put into a book of your choice. I would prefer definitely for it to be in the hands of somebody like Megan Rosenblum, who genuinely cares about
Yeah.
the history of these things, you know?
Yep. Nope. I agree. But I think the whole tattoo thing is what's intriguing to me. And I had shared a link in the Discord because I saw a TikTok about it like a few months ago, and then I remembered because they didn't mention the guy in here, but there's this doctor, I can't remember his name now. This Asian doctor who has collected like, because I think it's in Japanese culture, a lot of the men have like full back pieces, and they agree and they make like agreements with him that when they die he can take their skin, and he's got full like torso shaped just pieces of skin. Dr. Fukushi Masiachi, I don't know if that's how you say it, but I was surprised she didn't mention him in there because it's just, and that's, I mean, I think that was going on until pretty recently. I don't know if he's still alive, but I think the whole saving your tattoos is really cool because yeah, like I've put a lot of money and a lot of time and pain and into mine. So yeah, I feel like it would be beneficial if I knew who it was going to. But I didn't also know that you can't donate your skin and also donate your body to science because you can't arrive with parts missing, or so no. I think you can't be an organ donor and donate your body to science because you can't arrive with like parts missing. So if you want to donate your body to science, you can't be marked off as an organ donor. And you also have to die. Like the parameters were so weird, like within 50 miles of the school. Otherwise, your family has to pay to transport you. And it's, yeah, the stipulations that you had to die to be able to donate your body to science were very, like, they were very picky.
What if you don't have like an appendix? Is that gonna dock you? Like life-saving surgery.
That's true.
Circa 2012.
I think probably, I mean, if you were alive and functioning without it and then you died, I think that would be different than if they were to harvest it from you.
Harvest.
But I don't know.
Word. That was my moist word.
Ugh.
Sorry.
That's the worst.
Gross.
But yeah,
Interesting.
I liked this book, and I did the audiobook while reading it because I've learned that makes my brain focus way better. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if you read it, and I just put the book down, so now I don't know where it went. But there was one part where I had paused it and then I came back to it, and it was yesterday because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't finish the book. And so I hurried and pushed play while I was like getting up to walk around and find where my book was. And I had paused it mid-chapter. Oh, now I don't know where the quote was at. I had literally paused it mid-chapter. And when I pushed play, it started with, the results are incomparably lush and velvety images that may or may not have caused me to utter out loud, that flayed penis is just beautiful. And like Tony looked at me and I just looked at him and I was like, he's like, what are we listening to? I was like, this book. He's like, oh, okay. And then I had to go back because I'm like, what are we talking about? Because I paused it in a weird spot.
You hear one word and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Pause
Yeah.
it.
I was like, you're welcome. He knows what we listen to. It's fine. But that was just the best part to push play. I was like,
without
oh my
context, he's like, God, what are you listening to? I will say one of my favorite chapters in this is chapter 7, which I feel like could have been its own book, which is the postmortem travels of William Corder. That was fascinating because it also brought up a topic of what part of you we're talking about. Is it like she mentioned something about like even if it's like a finger bone, like if it's like a part of you, like the part of you also matters as to like where it can go and who it belongs to and what it means legally. Like is it let's see, what's the right phrasing? What? Also, the distant relative who became obsessed with getting Corder, this is page 129, what she considered a proper burial. The Barry townsfolk who would rather keep their famous murderer in his historic context than move him to his victim's resting place. She did verify for me that that person who came in wanting his remains was actually a relative by marriage. And then they weren't married anymore. I don't know if that was
That's
also in the
weird.
book, but technically technically she wasn't legally allowed to have those things. So anyway, and I also found this chapter super interesting because I wrote down, quote, Ted Bundy prophecy. Page 118. The brutal and salacious nature of the crime piqued villagers' curiosity. Near the Red Barn, a preacher drew a crowd of nearly 5,000 onlookers as he decried the heinous acts of Corder, who already bore the new moniker, quote, Corder the Murderer, in town gossip and folk song. Throngs of visitors were also entertained by a camera obscura and various impromptu plays depicting the crime in grisly detail. William Corder's mother had to threaten the playwrights over use of her son's name, as he had not yet stood trial, but still Corder was on everyone's lips. And I was like, that is so interesting and modern feeling. Because we get these documentaries and we get these books about cases when the trials haven't even happened yet. Like, why do we have a book out right now about the Idaho Four? Like, not like it's so interesting. And she even said too, she was like, I'm so shocked as to how modern that felt. When court adjourned for the day, enterprising onlookers, sorry, I got a sticker in the way, many of them women, propriety be damned, climbed ladders onto the roofs of nearby buildings to attempt to get a look at the prisoner. Women of all classes showed keen interest in the outcome of the trial. One upper-class woman told reporters she was looking forward to witnessing the hanging of someone who was so inhumanely butchered another woman. Preach. Their weight threatened to collapse the roof of the courthouse. The ban on women in the courthouse was lifted. Constables stayed on guard for more shenanigans from rowdy onlookers for the rest of the trial. Fascinating. I could seriously read a whole book. Oh my god.
That, on that
Sorry,
same
TikTok,
like
sorry.
the end of that chapter, where it literally described why I like true crime.
Right.
Because of how many women gathered to
Mhm.
want to see his body. And they were talking about like murderabilia because it gives people who own that type of thing a sense of control. It says, which may help to explain why so many women were avid spectators at Corder's trial, execution, and dissection. It's the same thing that draws us to true crime today, the push-pull between repulsion and fascination with the corpse, mingled with a thirst for vengeance against violence, turns death into entertainment for the living. And I'm like, I've always struggled to tell people why I'm so fascinated by just horrible, dark, fucked up stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Like, I don't love it. I'm intrigued by it. I'm fascinated by it. And I was like, oh, cool. It's very much not modern, but also completely applies to me and my fascination with all of things morbid.
Yep. And I apologize if you were on TikTok there. The book hit the iPad and it fell over. It probably made the worst noise in your ears. I'm so sorry. It was so loud. Okay. Kelsey.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi. I'll go quick because I would echo a lot of things that have already been said. I really loved this book. I really loved her voice. I really loved the weaving of like science and her narrative and like ethics and history and like all of these beautiful things. It was fantastic. Overall, probably my takeaway or the thing I thought in context or like related to it the most was one, like in the talks of consent and like ethics and like I'm a nihilist when death is involved. I'm like, I'll be dead. Like, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. But that is not like historically, societally, like a view. Like we have these ideas of like what is like the right way to handle death and dying and like burials and like what happens to bodies. And so my biggest, I guess I'm throwing out to the group and also just like the thing I've been thinking about the most is just who gets to make those decisions and then who gets to be at the table of like when she's talking, like some people are like, we got to bury these books. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, why? Like it's happened. They're here. Like, I am not a fan of like, just no matter how like screwed it is, like the erasure of history. And I think she made the point that that has a really bad tendency of leading us back into, like, I think it was newspapers that were printed on, what was it, mummy wrappings? Well, then the library had destroyed all those. So like we lose the proof of like these things that have happened, which I've read now enough about humanity that that just puts us on a fucking slippery slope back to bad shit. So
Right.
Let's not do that. But again, just who gets to decide like what the right thing is and like who sits at that table and how we make those decisions has
Right.
lived in my brain rent free for the last week since I finished the book. So
Yeah, and she definitely had a really good point about that too in the podcast about why she is very adamant about not doing that. And I agree. I agree. Personally. That's just like my opinion, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I'm not a monolith. I'm not the right way to deal with death, but
Right.
yeah, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm dead. Like, I'm not gonna know.
I'm not gonna care.
My family can deal with that shit. Like, I don't care. That's a them problem.
That sounds like a tomorrow issue. Ray.
Few things. So yeah, paupers graves, they were for poor people, and it was really uncommon for anybody that wasn't pretty well off. Like when you picture like people from the Victorian era, you picture people that can like afford to be photographed. Like those are the type of people that would actually be placed in nice cemeteries with like nice headstones. I don't know like what the exact statistic is, but we're talking about at least half of people, especially during times of like great dying, like Civil War, just various like diseases. If one, they didn't know who you were when you went to the hospital, or your family just straight up said, we can't afford this, or we're not dealing with this, you went into a mass grave. But nowadays, we still do have paupers graves, although the terminology isn't like technically correct because it isn't people that couldn't afford it, it's unclaimed bodies. Whether they pretty much all of them are cremated, just because of storage concerns. And I know LA has, and they did it for the first time since 2019 this year. They have a ceremony in as many different religions and languages as they can. So it can be more encompassing of the people that they don't know who they were, to be respectful of like their faith and like what they would have wanted. Like I know here in Chicago we have a similar thing that happens. I don't know how often it happens, but I know LA it used to be once a year, and I believe it's tens of thousands of people. And that is just incredibly sad. But I mean it happens. People, they
Yeah.
might not have next of kin, or their family just doesn't care.
Yeah.
Which, is sad, but also I've known enough people that I mean, also I can speak I can speak personally. My mother is a ward of the state of Florida right now. So I wouldn't be dealing with that.
Right.
So that's kind of the situation that would end up happening. And like it's interesting and it's sad. I kind of wish we had like a better word for it now. I'm sure we probably do, but that's just what people end up calling it. But as far as like consent, I don't think the concept of consent in any facet of life ever once occurred to the men that were making these things. Like especially like when you look at all of the other like atrocities that were committed against people for like in the guise of like, medicine or like research. And I mean even up until like a few decades ago, I don't think it would have even occurred to them to ask. And I also don't think, because of the vast majority of them being Christian and a lot of them being Catholic, I don't think they would have agreed. Because until fairly recently, there was a really strong it was a lot more common for the idea to be, if there's any part of my body missing, I'm going to go to heaven with that piece of my body missing. I know like Christianity doesn't tend to have that like idea anymore, but I know Buddhism is like that. Yeah, so I don't think they would have cared. And if they had cared enough to ask, I sincerely doubt, with the exception of the one guy who wanted it done, I don't think anybody would have agreed.
Yeah. And that's what's so fascinating to me about the era of the Anatomy Act as well, where that was such a threat to be donated to science. Because I was actually just about to say as well. There is a book that is coming out in March that I do definitely want to read. The Unclaimed, Abandonment and Hope in the City of Angels. Thank you for putting that in there.
Oh yeah, that would be about
yeah.
what happens with
Yeah.
the like the ceremonies and stuff.
I was thinking about it. I was going to mention it. Yeah, that's, first of all, fantastic cover. I'm going to be that person. Second, hell yeah. Definitely want to read that at some point. But yeah, good point. Absolutely good point. Let's see. Ashley, welcome, welcome. Did you like my reminder?
I did, and I totally would have missed it because I was reading a book and I didn't even realize it was 6:55. So
You did it. We're here. Welcome, welcome.
So I thoroughly enjoyed the book. To me, there was a definitive shift in her tone in the beginning of the book up until about chapter 8, where we talk about the person who chose to have control over his life and where his body was essentially stored for eternity, and chose to have, chose to be put, a book. He wanted to be a book. He wanted control. He wanted to say, okay, this is what I want done with my body, which I thought actually was very smart of him, because he would have probably ended up in those prison pauper graves, because he was in prison when he died.
Right.
So, he really did have the final, screw you to, the state that, he was a ward of at that point, and said, I'm still going to have the control whether you want me to have it or not. So that was one of my favorite chapters. One of the chapters that I struggled with, which, Patches, I told you, was the tanning process. Like, I didn't need to know all that. Like, it was great. And I was fine with like the first 3 pages in that chapter. And then after that, I'm like, why am I still eating while I'm trying to read this book? I should
But
know
now
better
you
at this
know.
point.
Now you can DIY.
Right? And so I'm like, I can make it through this chapter and get through the book. But I did enjoy it. And I can't wait to read more of her work. If she chooses to come out with more books, I'm excited about the podcast, but this was a fantastic start to the new year.
Our January books are always a hit. Always.
They
All the
are.
Living and the Dead. That was our favorite from last year. I don't think From Here to Eternity was our January book, but that was our favorite from the year before. Might have been. Anyway, January is always a hit. Gotta start the year off strong, So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. And the shift in tone, which I didn't touch
Yeah.
on, I said it, but so it was to me, her passion and for the project and what she does really started showing through like after chapter 8. To me, that's where, the tone of what she was writing shifted for me, but not in a negative way, just more of, okay, this is the history of what happened. And then as we move forward, this is the whole reason as far as why I feel the preservation of these items is important. And
Right.
so that's the shift in tone that I was mentioning earlier. But that's all I have. I'm done now.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because I actually didn't pick up on that, but now that you say it, I could totally see it. Absolutely. Heather, welcome, welcome. What's
Hi.
going on?
This is my first meeting, but we met at the Medusa book meeting the other day.
I thought that was you.
And
Welcome.
I heard you say something about a human skin book thing, and I was like, I have to find out what that is.
That was me. Yes, I do mention that during dinner.
I thought this book was super, super interesting. I'm actually a nurse in healthcare, so I've kind of got like I guess, a different frame of mind about it.
Yeah.
I think what the doctors did was really gross and disgusting, and like how they, got these human bodies. But I was reading this one part, it was like the corpse was king, dissecting corpses in the anatomy lab opened up a whole new world to the clinician, revealing the innermost secrets of the human body. So it's like they were able to learn by doing this, but they shouldn't have taken this, it's just kind of insane to me. And then I kept thinking about the Necronomicon from Evil Dead from the movie. Every time that she mentioned that, I thought about the book from the movie. But I thought it was really interesting. And I can't wait to read other morbid books.
Oh, thanks for coming. That's so rad. Yeah, you raised your hand and I'm like, I think that's her, but I'm not gonna say anything. I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm glad. it's always interesting too when we read a book and somebody within this, like a professional within that space too, is able to give some input, because I know there's like a librarian in the Discord who was very vocal about some stuff, and that was so cool. So I always love that. Definitely thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Georgia. What's up, girl?
Hi, everybody. This is my first meeting, but
Oh.
I happened to join right as y'all were reading this book, but I have a personal connection with this, which is that I used to attend an academic institution that shall remain unnamed that had a human skin book on display.
No kidding.
But I actually think it's a fraud
Oh.
based on the evidence that she has in this book. And so I I found like the society that she founded that does this testing, and I emailed them and I said, hey, here's this book. I think it's a fraud because of the way that the process. It has like a little description in the front of the book about like, this is how we got the skin and this is where it came from and all of this stuff, and it sounds extremely fake after reading this. But so I emailed them, and I'm hoping that they will do an investigation into this book. So yeah, fascinating.
That is so cool.
Fascinating stuff.
Interesting. Okay, well now I have only 15 questions, but it's okay. You can't tell me the institution? You can't share that one now? Murky? Okay. All right, it's fine. It's okay. Thank you for joining us. Any other questions, comments, concerns, noteworthy topics? I wrote my questions for Megan in here. I'm gonna see if there's anything relevant for you guys, because it is 8:15. Yeah. Yeah, the Nazis, they have to have. There's got to be something out there. And I'm very relieved that the one that they did think was not. I think that's it. Chloe, what you got?
I was gonna wait and talk about this later, but my aunt was actually murdered like a year and a half ago.
Oh my God.
And her immediate family wouldn't claim her body. And so my mom somehow got involved. I don't remember like if they told her and all of this, but just about like those that go unclaimed, a little bit of insight. They said they would have kept her body in the morgue for I think it was 3 months, and then she would have went into one of those paupers graves where it's just essentially like a large grave of unclaimed people.
Wow.
So
3 months.
So
Is
we
3
ended up
months
getting
like
her ashes. That I think that was partially because they had contacted her family, like her next of kin, which was like her sons, and they refused to come get her. And they said they didn't want anything to do with it. So they were going to give 3 months for someone else to come do it.
Wow.
So I'm not sure what it comes with like, I live in Mississippi, and so I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard about the Jackson mass graves that were recently dug up. So I'm sure in situations where it's like people in prison or people who are unidentified, how long that wait is. But I know at least for my aunt in Alabama, it was 3 months.
Wow. Okay.
And then she would have gotten put in a grave.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if that was in Mississippi. I wonder does anybody know if that's all across the board? It's about 3 months, or
I would, if I had to guess, I mean, like, I'm not an expert in it. I would imagine that they would give people more time.
yeah,
You know,
that's a short amount of time to
It
describe.
depends on where the person is being stored. If it's like in a state-run thing, it's gonna be a way shorter time frame. But like independent funeral homes, it is fully up to them how long they want to hold on to somebody before they do something with them. Because
I know
even
in our
like people can
situation,
have
it
their
was
families pay thousands of dollars for private cremation and just never come and pick them up. And I know like that's not super uncommon. But yeah, it just kind of depends.
Wow. I do know we have a book coming up this year about graveyards across America, and I wonder if it gives us some insight into that. Fascinating. What a good
It's
book.
such a good book. It's such a good book.
I love this. This was really, really good. Oh yeah, I was thinking about you whenever we selected it. I don't know if it's going to go into detail. Does it go into detail at all of what we're talking about, Ashley?
It's mainly about the cemeteries and the cemeteries history and how they were developed, why they were developed in certain areas and stuff. It doesn't go into the cremation portion of what happens before the bodies get to the cemeteries.
Got it.
But the audiobook, for those who are going to listen to it on an audiobook, that's how I listened to it. It was fantastic. So when I seen it on the list, I did a happy dance. I'm like, oh my gosh, please choose the book. So
Yeah, I grabbed this a while ago and I've been meaning to read it. This is our August book, Over My Dead Body, Unearthing the Hidden History of America's Cemeteries. So very intrigued, very excited about that. And pictures are inside, which I think it was somebody put in the Discord. It was Lindsay Fitzharris who rang the alarm on the fact that if authors want pictures in the book, they have to pay for the copyright of them. Am I wrong? Am I right? That's somebody put in there, I think. Also, here's our Discord. I put a link in the chat. If you would like to join, let me know if I need to. You are correct. Sarah would know. It's another person to ask. But I think yesterday was the 79th anniversary of the Nazi camps being liberated. I think you're correct. Urns of unclaimed people have been at the hospital. Oh, wow. 15 days? What the hell? Sorry, that was really loud. Holocaust Remembrance Week. Yeah. So glad we love this book. That's always a good time. I'm very, very excited for our next book, which I did start reading today. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. And that is Lay Them to Rest. On the Road with the Cold Case Investigators Who Identify the Nameless. This is by Laura Norton. And again, I'm chatting with her on the 10th. If you have finished it, please send me your questions. I will also be posting something on the Morbidly Curious Book Club's Instagram, asking for questions. Yay! Order next month's book. Very good. So far, I'm really enjoying it. The audiobook is her speaking, which is super cool. She is a podcaster. I can't remember the Fall Line. Yeah. She has the co-host of the popular true crime podcast, The Fall Line. If you guys are fans of that, this is her. Make sure to follow and download and notify yourself when podcast episodes are releasing. I'm gonna poke Megan tomorrow and try and get this up before the end of January because it's relevant to the month. And for the future, I would love to get it up before our discussions so I can involve that in the discussion. Faults on me. It took me forever to edit this. Forever. And so I'm excited that I'm actually chatting with Laura on the 10th because that gives me proper time. Again, Oddities Expo. I will be there handing out flyers. If you guys are in the Charlotte area, that'd be super, super cool. Or if it's even coming to your city, go walk around with your t-shirt on. We love that. Do have new merch that will be releasing very soon. It is already up and available on the website, and I think you guys will find it very, very humorous. But I ordered it because I would like to see it first. I'm a little nervous. I just hope it turns out good, but I think you guys would really appreciate it. And this is why I was asking about this in the Discord yesterday. Why are you in the way? Also, this, if you're on mobile, the morbidlycuriousbookclub.com looks great. It looks fine on a computer, but I think it looks even better on mobile. So I do have some podcast stuff up if you guys would like to rep. And then this is our latest edition, which I love. I cannot wait to get my tie-dye, and I got a black tie-dye. So all of that the morbidlycuriousbookclub.com. I don't think there's anything else. Thank you guys so much for showing up. We had like 40 people in here. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for tuning in on Instagram and TikTok. And check my show notes one more time. Is there anything else? Any other questions? Jewelry coming soon too. Very, very exciting. Okay. I'm gonna end the lives. Bye, everybody. And I'm going to